Here.
Walsh.
Aye, here.
Edberg.
Here.
And Bean.
Here.
Thank you. Next is approval of the minutes of the closed city council meeting. Are there any corrections?
Walsh moves to approve.
Jones, second.
Seconds.
I have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Council members Jones,
Aye.
Bean,
I'm going to abstain since I missed the beginning.
Aye.
Edberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting on February 9th. Again, are there any corrections?
Move to approve, Madam Mayor. Jones.
Walsh will second.
I have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Council members Jones,
Aye.
Engstrand,
Aye.
Edberg,
Aye.
Bean,
I'm going to abstain again.
Walsh.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Council members Jones,
Aye.
Edberg,
Aye.
Walsh,
Aye.
Engstrand,
Aye.
Bean.
Aye.
Thank you. We have an agenda. And moving on to the first item on that agenda, under visitors and presentations. Tonight, we're going to hear from Connie Talon, our environmental specialist water resources engineer on the surface water management plan. So Connie, we don't see your face, so if you want to stop, there you are. Wonderful. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members, for the opportunity to introduce the surface water management plan. So I will share the screen now. I have a presentation to give. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. So I will start off with a brief history, and then I will introduce each chapter of the plan. Per Minnesota Statutes 103B, local units of government in the 7-county metro area shall prepare and implement a comprehensive surface water management plan. In 1992, the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources developed rules for the plan, plan content, which are found in Minnesota Rules 8410. These local plans must meet the requirements detailed in Minnesota Statutes 103B and Minnesota Rules 8410, and must also be consistent with Watershed Management Organization, or what I'll call WMO plans that have jurisdiction in the city. And as you probably are aware, White Bear Lake is within 4 WMOs: Rice Creek Watershed District, Valley Branch Watershed District, Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District, and Vadnais Lake Area Water Management Organization. Previously, local plans were standalone documents and were required to be revised within 2 years of a WMO watershed management plan update. And because we are in 4 watershed districts, those WMO plan updates were separated, so they weren't on the same 10-year schedule. So it was very difficult for cities such as White Bear Lake that are within more than 1 WMO. The city's plan has not been updated since 1997, in large part because the plan would have been in an almost constant state of revision. So to solve this problem, local surface water management plan updates are now on the same schedule as comprehensive plan updates. And consequently, the local surface water management plans are now incorporated into the comprehensive plan as either a chapter or an appendix item. So in our case, our local surface water management plan, once it's been adopted by council, will be an appendix to our comprehensive plan. So chapter 1 of the plan describes the purpose and scope. And as I mentioned, this plan must meet the requirements detailed in Minnesota Statutes 103B and Minnesota Rules 8410, and also be consistent with the WMO plans, adopted county groundwater plans, and the Met Council Water Resources Policy Plan. And so we are in 2 counties, Washington and Ramsey, and Washington County is the only one with an adopted groundwater plan. So they review our plan. I did also send it to Ramsey County in case they wanted to review as well. So the text in the white box is from Minnesota Statutes 103B.201 that lists the purpose of water management plans. So this list is in chapter 1 of the plan, so I'm not going to go through all of that. That's a lot of text. But I wanted to just briefly talk about a couple of items on the list, which I've outlined in red. So the first one is minimizing public capital expenditures. This plan includes numerous references to collaborations with other agencies, as well as seeking out grants in order to minimize expenditures. The second point is to establish more local uniform policies and official controls, which is accomplished by ensuring that the plan is consistent with WMO plans and that our official controls will be updated once this plan is adopted. So for chapter 2, that is the physical setting, describes the physical setting. Chapter 2 of the city's plan fulfills the requirements of the state statutes and rules and includes sections on location and history, topography and drainage, soils, groundwater, climate and precipitation, natural resources and recreation, and surface water resources. So under surface water resources, I've included more details about each of the city's lakes. In the past, residents have come into City Hall asking about the history of some of our lakes. So I thought it would be good to include this information in this surface water management plan. So you can see as an example of what I've put in the plan, this is a photo of Preview Lake in 1940. Versus Preview Lake in 2015. So readers can see the vast difference in some of these lakes as the city has been developed. Chapter 3 describes the WMO county, state, and federal agencies with jurisdiction in the city and their role in surface water management. We're also fortunate to have local cooperative agencies that are active in water resource protection. So those organizations are described in the plan as well. As per the requirements of Minnesota Rule 8410, Chapter 4 identifies existing and potential water resource related problems, or what I call issues, in the plan. This is one of the more important, I think, chapters in this plan. So the issues that are included in Chapter 4 were identified by staff reviews of studies prepared by city and other agencies, a review of the city's MS4 permit, discussions with city staff and commissions, and input from the public. So we used 3 different methods to collect input from the public. One was a comprehensive plan open house event, and we took relevant water resource related comments from those open houses and incorporated those comments into the plan. Another was collecting feedback from a 25 by 25 community water meeting that was held at City Hall. And the last was from an online survey. And it was a really popular survey. We got 250 responses. And that one of those questions and the responses are shown next to the text here in this slide. So this public input process is described in detail in Chapter 4, and all of the results of these 3 public input sessions are included in the appendices in the plan. So the identified issues are organized into 8 major categories in Chapter 4. Those are stormwater runoff management, lake, stream, and wetland management, natural resources management and recreation, groundwater management, public education participation, regulatory program, pollution prevention, operation maintenance, and funding. So each of these 8 categories is a separate section of Chapter 4. And since the goals, objectives naturally follow issue identification, a table is included after the issue statements in each of these 8 categories that identifies corresponding policies, goals, and objectives that address and then try to solve each of the issues. And this is required by Minnesota Statutes 8410. So also in Chapter 4, I, as I mentioned, had an interest in using this plan to document past projects. So in many of the 8 major categories, there are a description of past projects that relate to solving some of those issues that were identified. And I spoke with Mark Birch. I'm sure you all remember Mark Birch, who retired from the city after 30 years. So I spoke with him numerous times just to get all of that historical knowledge out of his head and onto paper and into this plan. So the project descriptions that I've highlighted in the plan are in green. So that's what is shown at the bottom right. So that's an example. So if you're looking specifically just for project descriptions, those are just in green. And then the picture in the upper left just shows one of the projects, which is the Banning Avenue flood mitigation project. So that's highlighted in the plan. So I just thought you might be interested in seeing a picture of that if any of you remember that situation that's now been solved. So as per the requirements of Minnesota Statutes 103B and Minnesota Rule 8410, Chapter 5 describes the program's activities and collaborations relevant to the implementation of the objectives that we described in Chapter 4. And it also identifies the roles of the city and other agencies involved in surface water and groundwater management. So each number objective that we created in Chapter 4 based on issues, those are what form the basis of the implementation plan, which is Table 26 in Chapter 5. This table, all these objectives are what the city would ideally plan to implement over the 10-year timeframe of this plan. So this is a screenshot of Table 26 directly out of the plan. So it includes the objectives identified in Chapter 4, along with responsible departments, potential partners, costs, timelines, and potential funding sources for each objective. So a few of the years are hidden in this example because in order for it to fit on this slide. And the objectives that are highlighted in green, as you can see at the bottom row, those I'm identifying as lower priority. And that would maybe become higher priority if there's additional funding found. So the non-structural, programmatic, and structural objectives to the identified issues they include all MS4 program elements in this table as well. So this is an extensive table. It's 17 pages long, but it includes everything from our MS4 program and CIP. So Table 27 in Chapter 5 is the capital improvement plan. So this table includes only those items from Table 26 that are actual capital projects or major maintenance tasks, such as pond cleaning. So these items ultimately from Table 27 would be included in the overall city's CIP plan. And I do want to stress this is a planning document. So as I noted in Chapter 5 of the plan, Table 26 is a comprehensive list of implementation activities, assuming full funding, which is currently beyond the city's resources. So project and program items identified in Table 26 may or may not be budgeted depending on available funding. However, it is still important to include all possible projects in this plan, as grant funding is sometimes only available for projects identified in local surface water management plans. So I wanted to make sure I have everything we could possibly ever want to do. I'm sure there's some I missed, but not meaning that it will occur, but if we have a better chance of getting funding if it's in there. So Chapter 6 describes the formal plan review and adoption process as well as the amendment process. So the plan review and approval process is summarized in this slide in that white square. And items 1 and 2 have been completed so far. So item 1, the plan has already gone out for a 60-day review to the water management organizations and the counties. And then has also gone out to Met Council for a 45-day concurrent review. So we did receive, so the 60-day review is over now, and we did receive comments and have incorporated them into the plan. And during the 60-day review in step 1, staff and the Environment Advisory Commission also reviewed the plan and provided comments, which are included as well. So the first part of item 3 is also complete. The revised plan was sent back to the agencies for a second review. So that's where we are currently. It's out for a review again. And once the plan had been revised, so they're reviewing their comments to make sure it's been incorporated correctly. So if they have no additional comments after this review period, the water management organizations will be bringing it to their board for approval. And then once all of the water management organizations have approved the plan, then it would go to, then City Council must formally consider and adopt the final plan through council action within 120 days. And then we need to amend the official controls if they are not consistent with the plan, and those need to be amended within 180 days. So as we wait for these additional comments or approval from the WMOs, I invite the mayor and council and the public to review the plan. The revised plan is located on the city's website at the link shown on the screen, or you go to engineering, stormwater management, and then surface water management plan, as you can see to the left. There are 2 versions of the plan right now on the website. One is a red line version, and that's just showing the agency reviewers what has been changed based on their comments, so it's easy for them to find and review. And then the other is a clean draft, and I have a red arrow at that one, so that's one that incorporates all the red lines, but it's a clean draft of the plan. Feel free to look at either one. So any comments that you have could be directed to me, and I have my contact information below, and my email address and phone number. So this is a large plan, so to give ample time for review, comments won't be due until the end of the day on Friday, March 26th. And I will also post this presentation on the website so you can refer back to it at any time. So do you have any questions?
Council, anybody have a question, comment? Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Connie, I don't envy you the job of trying to coordinate response among several water management organizations, let alone a variety of other governmental and non-governmental bodies. But are there any common themes of places where there are tensions between organizations, or we're finding common ground, common vision, common approach is more difficult than others? What I'm trying to dig for is, so we obviously share jurisdiction over a very large body of water and a bunch of other bodies that cross over. What can we be doing? How can we be acting in a way that makes finding common approaches easier?
Well, first, as far as the review, Mayor and Councilmember Edberg, at first, so each water management organization has their own rules and their own requirements when it comes to local surface water management plans. So they are just reviewing based on their own requirements. And so I'm not seeing any tension regarding this plan between all of the water management organizations. So that's going smoothly. I mean, there's very, very specific requirements that go into this plan. And also I need to include all of the accurate information from each watershed management organization. So I'm mainly getting comments like that. And working with the different water management organizations. Now, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but again, they're all draining to different water bodies that have different requirements. So there's some opportunity to coordinate between the watershed management organizations because some have more information on one thing than others. And I know they have actually collaborated between the water management organizations. So I think it's going quite well. And we as a city, we know what resources each water management organization has. So we do reach out to them a lot and we do rely on them a lot for collaboration, definitely. So Councilmember Edgar, I don't know if that answered your question.
Sounds like things are fine.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Well, thank you. This is a lot of work, I know, and I'm glad we have you and your expertise to navigate through this process because it's a lot. I like the idea that you've pulled together all the history on the lakes and things because I think that's always important to have that information. And when jobs change hands, we lose some of that institutional history. So I'm glad you were able to do that. And it was kind of fun to hear Mark's name again. It's been a while.
Yes, it was great working with him. And he also came out of retirement and came back to talk with me to finalize some of these project write-ups. So I really appreciated that.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to send him a note. Thanks. Well,
Yes.
we look forward to seeing this finished. I'm sure you are looking forward to that also. So once again, thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to item 5, public hearings. Resolution ordering improvements, approving plans and specifications, and authorizing advertisements for bids for the 2021 pavement rehabilitation projects. City project number 2101, 2104, 2106, and 2113. Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'll do a brief presentation. Carol will bring that up here. Let me get my screen here. And then I will do a brief presentation and answer any questions council might have here. If you want to go to the next slide. So the next 2 slides, just as a reminder to council and the public watching, the city does do a 5-year street reconstruction and mill and overlay program. So each year we go through and we reevaluate the streets based on, the past winter. Every winter can have a little bit different. This year we have, different freezing conditions than we might have last year. So we will reprioritize our pavement management program to best match what, I'll call it the next 5 years really needs to keep our pavement in good condition. This is a street reconstruction plan. This year we do not have any reconstruction projects planned. as we're kind of gearing up towards some bigger projects. So this year we are just sticking to mill and overlay. So if you want to go to the next slide, Kara. All right, so this is the mill and over, so this is the 5-year mill and overlay plan. You can see we look at the city in its entirety and try to prioritize, based on the budget that we work with council and our finance department to best fit the city's financing. If you want to go to the next slide, we'll take a look at this year's project. So this year's 2021 pavement rehabilitation project, you can see we look at it all over town. There's a number of areas that we are doing mill and overlay, some full depth pavement replacement. And then we have one alley that we had skipped over the last couple of years just due to timing to try to get some storm sewer extended into that alley. So we'll get to that in each individual project areas in a second here. But this is our overall project for 2021. If you want to go to the next slide. So this year's project, we're actually doing about 2.5 miles of streets that we will be milling and overlaying, including that alley that we'll do full pavement replacement on. So this is an area just north of City Hall, right at the north border of White Bear Lake. So it includes Woodcrest, Campanaro, Garden, and Georgia Lane. That's an area that will get a pavement rehabilitation this year. If you want to go to the next slide. Birch Lake Avenue is also on this year's project, just east of Otter Lake. Next slide. Here's where I was talking about that alley. This was kind of skipped over as we were doing some of the downtown projects the last number of years. We're also doing 6th Street and 5th Street. This is really getting us prepared to do it as we get into that downtown area. These would be kind of detour routes and access into the downtown area while we're doing reconstruct on some of the downtown area to the south. So these are important to get out of the way before the pavement deteriorates anymore. Next slide. We have Lake Hill Circle is also an area that we selected based on pavement condition. Next slide. And our final area, this is, if you remember, this is just west of Elm, which we did last year and added the sidewalk. So this area is just to the west of that, including Elm, Savannah, and Fair Oaks area. So that will receive a mill and overlay. I'm going to move to the next slide. So the project scope that we'll have this year is just basically mill and overlay. There's a few areas that we'll have to do full pavement replacement. Where some of the damage to the pavement goes a little bit deeper, but the subgrade and the curb is generally in good condition, so we don't need to go into a full reconstruct. We'll also do alley reconstruction, and again, we wanted to add that storm sewer. And with us doing the mill and overlay on 5th and 6th Street, it really afforded us to do that extension when we have those roads opened up. We'll do some spot curb repairs, utility and storm sewer system repairs. And then we also work really closely with the private utilities for them to come in and do any replacements and upgrades that they want to do before we, while that road is being reconstructed, it saves from them doing damage down the road. As far as project financing goes, this year's project in its entirety is a little over $2.2 million. Of that, $480,000 is proposed to be through assessment. So kind of keeping with that. At the bottom of the sheet, you'll see where the city's policy states that we should be assessing about 1/3 of the project cost. And you see this falls in very closely with that policy. One thing to note here is that we are also proposing 2 public parking lots, Matoska Park, as where the boat parking is, and the sailboat loop and some of those areas. And we're also, Lakewood Hills is also up for some pavement rehabilitation as well. We're going to put those in as bid alternates like we did last year, just to make sure project financing works out. And obviously the streets are, first and foremost to keep those in good condition. So we'll play in the parking lots as that fits into the financing. I'm hoping for good bids again. So that is the project financing. If you want to go to the next slide. So for the mill and overlay, we're estimating the assessments to be about $1,200 to $2,500, depending on the size of the lot. and the alley falls into that just over $2,000 range. These are very close to what we've seen the last 2 years for sure. Bids have, construction costs have stayed fairly steady, so we're pretty comfortable that we should fall into this range again based on bids we receive. You want to go to the next slide? So the total pavement replacement is just slightly more than the mill and overlay because we're replacing the full depth of pavement, but it should last a little bit longer. Again, we should be in the $2,000 to $4,000 range on those. And if you want to go to the next slide. So the assessments for this year, for the mill and overlay and the alleys, we've been doing a 10-year assessment period. The interest rate would be that 2% over our bond rate that our finance department gets when we go for our bond issuance. And these would all be payable in your 2022 taxes. Go to the next slide. So project schedule, if you remember at our January 26th meeting, Council received the feasibility report and ordered the public hearing, which we would be having tonight. Tonight we would have the public hearing and order the project and approve plans and specs at the bid date. Hopefully, if Council desires to move forward, we would open bids in March, award in April, and as soon as we can get going in the spring, that we would be going on with construction. Next slide. So right now, or the recommended actions tonight would be to hold the first to hold the public improvement hearing and hear any public input on the project. And if Council so chooses to move forward, they would approve the resolution ordering the improvements, approving the plans and specifications, and authorizing staff to go out for bids. We're doing this this process is required by Chapter 429 of the state statute, so we're following a very specific process. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions Council might have.
Thank you. Do any of you have a question for Mr. Coffey at this time? Council, if not, I will open the meeting up to the public that have questions on this project. So, Kara, did anybody sign up to speak on this issue?
Mayor Emerson, nobody has signed up specifically.
Okay.
I would ask if anybody would like to speak. There's the raise hand button. Please feel free to speak at this time by raising your hand. Do you have any comments?
I don't know where the raise hand button is, sorry.
There. Good job.
So if you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, ma'am. I am Claire Starzinski Wallace. There's a P in there too, as you can see. And the address is 1759 Elm Street. So I'm chiming in on that property.
Okay.
So from what I saw on the screen, references were to single family homes, but there was no reference to the townhomes that are also on Elm Street. What would be their cost?
So, Madam Mayor, I can answer that question.
Please do.
So those would have been in the notice or the information that we mailed to you. If I can pull it up quickly, I can do that. So 1759. The multifamily is in the $700 to $800 range for the assessment. So much lower than the single family cost.
So $700 to $800, is that what you said?
Yours looks to be the estimated assessment would be $733.
$733. That's the total cost?
Correct.
Oh, okay. That seems fair and reasonable for all the work that's going to be done.
Well, thank you. We answered your question. This is good. So we're glad to do that. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this issue tonight? We'll see none.
I do. Yeah,
Okay, good.
I'm sorry, I don't see the raise hand
Sure.
button either.
Certainly. No problem.
I need
Welcome.
your name and address.
Paul Malator, and I live at 1807 Birch Lake Avenue.
Okay, please go ahead.
You mentioned 2022 as far as when the assessment would probably be applied. So is the amount collected in a single year then?
No.
Madam Mayor, I can answer that question. If you elect, so you once we get into that public or the assessment hearing, we will give once the council adopts the assessments, you would have 30 days. You can have that option to pay the entire amount, or you can assess it over a 10-year period. It is a constant principle, so it's your first year's payment is the highest, and then it would slowly go down as you pay off over that 10-year period.
Okay. And our street is up for a mill and overlay, and roughly how long is that anticipated that would last? And then would it be milled and overlaid again, or would it probably be up for a total replacement?
Yeah, so I can answer that question once again. So generally our pavement preservation techniques that we use, the life of the overall pavement is somewhere between 30 and 50 years before we have to do a full reconstruction. Typically, once we construct a roadway, typically at about 25 years, we want to come in and do what we're doing today is that mill and overlay or a complete pavement replacement. And then hopefully that will last another 25 years before we would have to come in and do a full reconstruction. So that's kind of, and then we also do some different techniques which are not assessed. We come in and do crack sealing, we do some seal coating, we do other just, pothole patching, things like that, that are either bid out or that are done through our public works staff. So our goal is to get 25 years out of each of these projected or these maintenance techniques.
Okay, so when it's milled and overlaid, roughly it might be 20 or 25 years before another major.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, then I guess I will close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Council, I'm looking for a resolution, a motion to approve this.
Dean will move to approve.
Walsh will second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Council members Bean,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Engstrand,
Aye.
Edberg,
Aye.
and Walsh.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right, moving on to new business 9A, resolution approving a rental agreement with Comcast Cable. Ms. Heinecker.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's the resolution itself was taken off of consent as we initially deliberated because I wanted to take this opportunity to update council a bit on where we're at with the franchise approval process. So what we're asking council to consider, at least for tonight, would be simply to once again extend Comcast's lease at our Bel Air Center at its current the current lease rate, which is $10.17 per square foot, and have that extension go for an additional 6 months as we await the finalization of that franchise agreement and its adoption. At that time, we will then undergo negotiations with Comcast for a longer term agreement. This has been before council a few times now. We've had a few extensions in response to extensions that we've had for our franchise agreement, as council is aware. And I'm happy to report that we did get an update today in speaking with Tim Finnerty of SEC and the attorneys that have been working on this process, that they have now come to a mediated settlement with Comcast. They were very pleased with the process. They felt they had a mediator, actually because of our ability to operate through Zoom, a mediator well-versed in this topic out of, I think it was Vermont or Virginia. I can't remember which one. I know it started with the V. Nevertheless, someone that has expertise in this area, and I think both sides, as was reported by Mr. Finnerty, I felt were satisfied with the process. And again, happy to report that they've arrived at a mediated settlement. They hope to finalize a franchise document by the end of this week. The document is big. It's about 75 pages. And so it will be before the council the month of March for consideration. So we expect it is going to be and adopted, we need to adopt that by ordinance. And because of the timing of all of this, they've had some illnesses as a result of COVID, and there have been delays, but they're right there at the finish line. But they do have hopes to have it adopted by the cities by April 1st, which is when it would take effect, which would mean that we would have our first reading at the first meeting in March and second reading held just 2 weeks after, as opposed to what we traditionally would have a month in between. So a bit off topic for what is being considered for tonight, but it was an opportunity to let you know where that's at. At our next meeting, we will be inviting the attorney that's been representing this negotiation, as well as Tim Finnerty, who the two of them will present or outline the different tenets of the franchise agreement. I know traditionally we would do that at our second reading, but we want you to have a thorough understanding of what it would involve. There'll be opportunities for questions and then time for consideration between that and second reading, which will be held again the second meeting in March. So that was an update with regard to that. I do want to just add, I know that there were questions regarding even just our joint powers agreement as it relates to the Cable Commission. So as a reminder to council, we had made a decision to go through with the franchise agreement process and see it through. Happy to report that we are, from what's been reported to date, I believe that we will have higher PEG fees, and we're able to capture that. Not higher PEG fees, excuse me. Our franchise arrangement will be more favorable, I should say, for some of our technology initiatives than it would otherwise have been had we not participated as jointly through our joint powers agreement. So good decision by council, I think, to stick with it. And we also recognize that once this has been adopted, we'll need to regroup and have some discussion about with the communities that remain, how we move forward as a joint powers and work together as a commission. So that's like next step. Let's get through this process first. So with that said, more simply, we're just asking council to consider a resolution for an extension of the lease at the Bel Air Center, and more to come.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Ms. Heinecker? So do I have a motion to extend the lease?
Edberg moves to extend the lease as noted in the resolution.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Engstrand, okay. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Council members Walsh,
Aye.
Engstrand,
Aye.
Beam,
Aye.
Edberg,
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to 9B, resolution approving the carryover of expenditures from the 2020 budget to the 2021 budget. Ms. Kinsbotter.
Hi. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As the city wraps up our 2020 fiscal year, I'm getting ahead of myself there. We have projects and capital purchases included in our 2020 revised budget that were not completed before December 31st, 2020, either due to a time delay on the project or a vendor delay on providing us the large capital equipment. So as stated in my memo, the fund balance, because we didn't spend the monies in 2020, the fund balance will be higher at the end of the year. And so by carrying over these expenditures, the fund balance would then pay for these expenditures. What I'm asking for the council to do is approve us to carry forward the budgeted expenditures that were included in the memo to the 2021 budget year based on their approval of the expenditures in the 2020 revised budget in December. We first asked the City Council to approve a resolution like this in 2019, and we've made this an annual process. The items included in this resolution each year tend to be one-time projects or large capital purchases that, just because of the time frame, we start the process off early, but because of the vendor delays, it doesn't get done in time. We'll continue to do this process in future years because I think it's a great way to update the council on the status of some of these budgeted processes and purchases each year. So with that, I request your consideration of this resolution.
Thank you. Council, any questions? If not, do I have a motion?
Move to approve, Madam Mayor. Jones?
Do I have a second?
Edberg seconds.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Council members Engstrand,
Aye.
Walsh,
Aye.
Edberg,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Bean.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to discussion, the recodification process, acceptance of proposed modifications to Article 1, general provisions of the municipal code. Ms.
Yes,
Heinecker, are you
Mayor.
doing this?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This was put under discussion. We are asking you to accept, the draft as was presented by staff. There is no formal resolution for adoption. I wanted to take an opportunity just to remind council of a process that we're undertaking and we're launching, really the council's involvement tonight, but this will move forward through the year and into 2022. It's going to be a long process. A lot of work has already gone on behind the scenes at the staff level with in all departments as we review our code. As council knows, we have many sections in our code that are quite outdated with reference to things that are no longer material for the city of White Bear Lake, are, maybe 20, 30 years ago. And there's still reference, I think, to dance halls, for instance, with our code. So things like that will be cleaned up, but there will also be more substantive changes to our code. And there will be consideration to policy that council will need to be deliberating over. However, the majority of that which is included in our code that will be updated is not as substantive as much as it is just language. And so our process has been, we've been working with MuniCode, and I think, Kara, I'm looking at Kara because she's been launching this program. It's been at least a year that we started working with MuniCode. And then they went through and did some initial review and highlighted sections for us. And then from there, we're going through each one individually. And as they're ready, we're having them reviewed by our own city attorney before we have it go to council. And that's for all sections of the code outside of our zoning code for process at this time. And for those items that we believe require more discussion, we'll put that under discussion. Let's just say, for instance, we were talking about sidewalks in our ordinance. We'll want to make sure that that particular topic, when we get to it for revision, is brought to council so we're sure we're still comfortable with how we're proceeding, and or whether or not we need to change our policy and approach. So that would be an example of items that we would put on the agenda for discussion as we move through this process. For those items, not unlike that which was included in this packet, that are more just procedural or minor language changes or just updating the language, those will be put under consent. And just it's an FYI to council, and under consent, it's just accepting. You're not approving it at this point, because of course, once we've gone through this entire review process, council is going to need to adopt the recodify the municipal code in its entirety. And recognizing that that is an enormous task if we do it just at once we've gone through it all, which is why we're just slowly going to be bringing these to you as they're complete, as a review's been completed. So that's with the section of the code that doesn't involve the zoning. So with that process, our planning department is doing its review, and then we'll bring those sections to the planning commission first, and then it will then move to council for final review. Again, we're going to be doing this in sections. So again, when I say review, when they're brought to council, it's not for adoption. We will be adopting it in its entirety at the end of this process. It will be for review and comment and discussion as needed. So That really was just why it was put under discussion this evening as we launch this and begin to involve council in this process. We wanted to remind you of that process. We have talked about this, I think, before, but it's been a long time coming because there's been a lot of work already done to date to get us to the point now where we can start presenting sections to council. Are there any questions that council might have at this time?
Council, anyone have any questions, concerns about the process?
Okay.
It's going to be a big undertaking, but obviously it needs to be done. So
yes. We'll take it in chunks and we'll get through it. It's just, you got to start somewhere, right? So, all right, great. Thank you.
Well, then moving on, you might as well stay tuned. Moving on for communications from the city manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. I have a few, and then I'll defer then to both Ann and Paul for additional updates. But as Council may have noted, I listed out work session dates for the coming year. We had a lot of activity in January. I think we had maybe 3 special meetings. So in February, of course, we took a break right from that a bit. But I'd like to resume a monthly opportunity to meet with Council to discuss topics that are not upcoming agenda item. That is our tradition at our work sessions, is to discuss other topics that aren't necessarily coming up at the next item or next agenda. And our more immediately, our next meeting then we're hoping to have on March 30th, which is a Tuesday. We have 5 Tuesdays in March, so we are taking advantage of that by scheduling it on that evening. And moving forward, it would be the 3rd Tuesday of each month with the exception of July and December. Now, right now with COVID, it's been a much easier to schedule these meetings because we're able to, we're at home and we're chiming in and there isn't as much traveling. I recognize that as the year goes on, and we're very hopeful that there'll be more opportunity for traveling and being out of town. I can assure you that we have technology now that can help with that. If, in fact, you decide you want to participate and you are out of town, not just for work sessions, but in meetings to come, we have the ability now to have multimedia meetings where we can have both Zoom and in person. So that will accommodate those work sessions down the line if, in fact, you do have something that you need to schedule during that time. But it's certainly, there's going to be times where people just can't make it. Nevertheless, that's what we have before us. Unless there's any concerns, I'm happy to have that discussion with council. And but if not, we've kind of been sticking to those off Tuesdays at this time, in the past year at least, and it seems to have worked out pretty well. We'll still stay with our 6 o'clock start times for work sessions. I think that has also seemed to work.
Thank you.
Okay, and just a quick update on the Welcoming and Inclusive Community Initiative. We had, and pleased to have received, a number of applications. I was in the 20s. I think we had 25 applications. Mm-hmm. And so the mayor went through them very carefully. And of course, we needed to narrow that number down, which was difficult, I know, for the mayor.
It was hard. Yeah.
It's hard. You have a lot of strong applicants. And so we have that list and we'll send that out to council. Our subcommittee of council, which includes Councilmember Jones and Councilmember Walsh and the mayor, of course, I will be calling a meeting next week with the subcommittee to get together and meet once again with Barbara Ray. There's been work done, of course, in addition to getting the task force together. There's other work that's being done in preparation for our first meeting, which will be held March 17th. So then it's important, I think, that the subcommittee we all stay engaged and make sure that we're running the process as is expected by council and hoped by council. So we'll have that opportunity to meet next week and we'll make sure that we keep the full council updated as we move forward, but really looking forward to starting the process and very pleased at the response we had from our community in submitting applications. And we'll give another update for the housing process, but I can say that some of those that did apply for the Welcoming and Inclusive Community process are turning their interest towards the housing process, which is great. So a lot of engagement with our community. And I think that's all I was going to report on. I'm going to let you take on the discussion about the housing initiative and give an update. So maybe we'll start with Ann, and then Paul will go to you, see if there's anything further you want to report on.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'll just provide the council with a brief update on the housing task force and the housing initiative. We launched it about a week and a half ago, probably with both a video, just about a 4-minute video with quick data summarizing really what we found out in the 2019 Maxfield study for the housing analysis for the city. And then it also has a survey because we want to hear from a broad spectrum of White Bear Lake residents and employers about how housing impacts their daily lives here in the city and community. And then finally, there's also an application to serve on the housing task force. And so, as Ellen said, we have had a number of responses already. We're very pleased. But we're really making a concerted effort to attract a diverse and a broad-based representative task force to ensure just a healthy debate and that ideas are brought to the table and hashed out so that policies and recommendations for the council are well thought out, well vetted through the community. And so I'm just urging the council for you to reach out among your network to encourage them to apply. We have a number of homeowners, and that's wonderful. But I believe we're at about a 60-65% home ownership in White Bear Lake. And so already we're missing about a third of our population that lives in rental properties. I'm also looking at any folks who thought they were empty nesters and now have kids living back in their basement because they can't get out into the housing market here in the community. So that's an invitation to the council to reach out among your network. It's an invitation to those watching at home to reach out to your network to submit an application. We're not quite at the same number of the Welcoming and Inclusive Committee, and I believe we're going to be a little bit larger. So the more the merrier. And if not on this task, I'm sure that we'll find ways to engage you in future conversations as well. The deadline is currently stated for Monday, March 1st at noon. I would encourage anyone interested to go to the city's website and just search the term housing initiative. It will take you to the page on the community development page where you can find that application, the video, and certainly, you know, everyone should get a sticker for participating in the survey. We really do want everyone's thoughts and inputs on that. So I think that is my final pitch. At this point, just Monday is the deadline. And we'll see where we are with numbers. If we have to extend it, I'll twist the city manager's arm to do so. So that's where we are. And I don't have any other reports. We did have a planning commission meeting last night. A couple items on the consent and one will be on non-consent just because a neighboring business owner had some kind of back and forth concerns with some of the details on the proposal, but otherwise no severe objections or concerns. So that's good news.
Thank you. Mr. Coffey, what have you got for us? I know you've got a couple of things going on besides the streets.
I got a couple items for council. First off, as we went through the cold snap and now that we're coming out of it, we're having a few water main breaks. So if you get calls or questions, concerns from residents, we are doing our best to, you know, oftentimes these are emergencies, just to remind the general public as well. But our staff can't always get out and knock on all the doors and get notices out to everybody immediately. They're trying to isolate the break. Get that repaired, and as time allows, they will go and knock on doors and let residents know. So if you do hear anything, please direct them towards Public Works or Engineering, and we can definitely help them out. Secondly is the gazebo. Good news is the committee, Councilmember Jones sat on some initial meetings. I think we're moving in a good direction. We had a number of contractors and some structural engineers, Brian Hansen, the architect that's serving on the committee, look at the gazebo, and per the wishes of the Historical Society as well as the donors, we've determined that the upper portion of the structure is structurally sound to be able to save. So we'll continue to be able to save that. We have confidence that it will be, serviced for many, many years and don't really have concerns. The lower structure that was originally placed 20, 25 years ago is in pretty poor condition. The floor structure is rotted, so we will be replacing all that. We'll be replacing it with materials that will hopefully last a long, long time. So the next piece of this is we're getting some more detailed cost estimates, and we work with Troy Gilchrist, our city attorney, to go through just some contracting and the best ways. Ultimately, we kind of decided that it would be best for the city to take that task on to do the contracting and accept the donation. So I've been working with council to accept that donation and authorize staff to go get official quotes to be able to move forward with that project. So more to come on that in the next meeting or two. Hopefully there are some supply chain issues as far as getting some of the materials. So we're going to do our best to get that done by the end of June to help hopefully be with us as we celebrate Manitou Day. So be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Council, anybody got any questions about this? I'm just thrilled it's moving forward. And then do you have anything about the caboose?
Madam Mayor, Rick is actually the one.
Oh, that's right. You're not
on that committee.
But Councilmember Bean is on that committee, I believe. So
I was going to pass it off here.
Yeah.
So you had a meeting, I believe.
Right. We've had one meeting so far. It was more of an introductory meeting, so nothing.
But we're moving forward.
We're moving.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I just have one thing I'd like. Did you have anything else, Mr. Coffey? I'm sorry. Did you have it?
Nope, I do not have anything else.
Okay. I just wanted to say to everybody, just please take the survey. And council, if you haven't taken it yet, please go out and do it. I think it's important that we all take part in this. And then I'm going to speak on behalf of the council too at this point. I'd like to publicly thank our city employees who have worked tirelessly to make sure our city work gets done. They're doing a great job under difficult circumstances, and I just want them to know that their work is appreciated. I mean, they're just doing outstanding work. So I'm sure the council would agree with me on that, but I just wanted to put that out there to thank them again because they have been working very hard. And all of you department heads, kudos. You guys have done just an amazing job. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Walsh moves to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Council members Jones,
Aye.
Engstrand,
Aye.
Walsh,
Aye.
Edberg,
Aye.
and Bean.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Good meeting. See you later. Good night.
Everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.